Good evening, everybody. Welcome to NUFC 360 with myself, Michael, Ez, Mark, and Joel. Evening, lads.
Hi, everyone.
Good day. Good evening.
Yeah, we're here to talk tonight. We're going to talk about the magician that is Sven Botman. We're going to talk about hopefully our cup runs and can we extend them longer than we have in the last couple of years, which is usually finished by January. And we're going to talk about our opponents tomorrow night, Sheffield Wednesday. But first, just like to say, my respect and sympathy go out to the family of Gianluca Vialli, who sadly passed away today, in case you don't know. Probably most people do at the age of 58. He was a terrific footballer, and he was apparently a really, really decent man as well, which is the best legacy to leave behind than anything else. So R.I.P. Gianluca. Moving on to our own team, we're going to start with Sven Botman. What can we say about that man? Joe, I know we'll start with Joel because he's got a very, very interesting statistic, which most people will know. But go on, Joel, tell us that one you were saying before we came on air.
Yeah, so since we're signed him on the 1st of July, it's now been 189 days. He's been on Tyneside, and he's still yet to experience a defeat in a black and white shirt. Obviously, he wasn't in the squad, I don't think, for the Liverpool game, or at least he was on the bench. He didn't come on at any point, so he didn't lose there. And then obviously he's kept 12 clean sheets or something like that. Just utterly magnificent, and I think he's been a bargain for 35 million.
Yeah, I mean, Mark, I'll come to you next. I mean, like Joel says, 35 million. Newcastle hung in there because they wanted him this time last year. Apparently, he didn't get him. If that's true or not, is not going to be one of the in the know crowd, but. It's a good job they stuck to the guns, and they saw something there, didn't they? What can you say about Botman?
I mean, yeah, I think Joel nailed it. 35 million is a bargain, and stewards' enquiries should be ringing around the entirety of the Premier League and the rest of Europe, for that matter. Why the hell was nobody else in for him other than us and AC Milan? Mind-boggling, absolutely mind-boggling. People should be losing their jobs over this shit. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, for us to get someone like that, I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen someone so competent on the ball and so young still is. I mean, what is he, 21, 22? Didn't get to go to the World Cup, so I don't know what Van Gaal had against him, but ridiculously to be that good at our team at 22. Is he 22, lads? Is he 21, 22?
22.
I believe he's 22, yeah.
I think if this guy would have to go on like a Titus Bramble-esque run to not be considered the greatest defender we've ever had, at least in modern times. I'm trying not to be hyperbolic about this guy, but this guy is just so solid. And the scary thing is, like, I can't even think of like a really standout highlight from him. Like, I just can't, because he's so good. He doesn't even need to make last ditch tackles because he doesn't even get to that point where he needs to do that. So, I did one highlight that I can think of now, kind of off the top, is at the Arsenal game when he whacked one with his right foot, which I don't think they were expecting, and it was like a crossfield pass with his right foot, and it was just a real wow moment for anyone that knows that he's actually really predominantly left-footed. You're like, this guy's got everything. But yeah, there hasn't really been a standout moment for me really from Sven Botman, which tells you everything you need to know. I'm going to say it because I think people say it about Jonathan Woodgate, right? He's like, he was one of the best, and he barely played. Well, this guy's barely played, and I'm calling it. I think he's the best defender we've ever seen in our generation, anyway.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, it's very brave of you to mention Botman and Titus Bramble in the same breath, in the same sentence, because we all know what Titus Bramble brought to our team, don't we? But yeah, I think the thing with Woodgate is he's probably the one that sticks out in my mind. I remember watching us play against Arsenal, and I still think that Thierry Henry is still in his back pocket to this day because he was just magnificent that day. But like Joel said, 189 days, so since July, since he came in, he's not put a foot wrong, which is unlike Woodgate, who was so injury prone and could be very up and down. I mean, I don't know if anyone wants to pop in here about it, but his form is amazing. I mean, is it just him? I mean, does he have is it the players around him? I mean, has he made Shah better? Is it, is that something to do with it? Or is it just him? Does anyone want to pop in with that one?
I mean, I think it's just an amalgamation of both. Obviously, he's got Nick Pope, who's performed outstandingly this season. I mean, our entire defence, obviously. But you can just tell as soon as he did step into the defence, the composure he possesses, complacency on the ball, the fact that we've finally got a ball-playing defender, which we've needed for so long because it alleviates the stress to have a really good number 6. And obviously, at the minute, Bruno is slipping in there. Longstaff's doing a job, but Shelby's injury, again, we might speak about this later on about January, whether we need number 6. I personally think it should be our priority, but I do think it's a bit of both. With defence overall, the season's been magnificent, like I said, but himself coming into that defensive line pairing with Shaw, because when we watched Sean burn for the first maybe 4 or 5, 6 games of the season, you're going, right, this is nailed on. This is the centre back pairing. Then Botman came in, you're going, hold on, like this is a whole new defender we've got here. And like you said, he hasn't put a foot wrong all season. So yeah.
Like Ez says, I mean, I don't know if Mark wants to comment on this, but he doesn't say he's not flash, is he? Or is he just that good? Does he just seem to do things without his thinking, whoa, God, that was brilliant? And he just, is that his thing about him, do you think?
It's really cliche to say it, but it's so damn true that it does warrant saying that it's Maldini-esque, because he was a player who you just didn't really notice on the pitch most of the time because he did his job that damn well. And most good defenders do go unnoticed if they're playing in a good quality team, which is obviously what they are now. And he's surrounded by good players, which obviously helps. But I think he could have come into a clown car of a defense and still be playing really, really well right now. Obviously, the fact that he is surrounded by good players is helpful too. But his effect that he's having on the players around him is obvious as well. I mean, Fabian Schär goes to the World Cup, and okay, he didn't play every game, but when he did play, he didn't look half the defender that he did when he's playing alongside Botman. And obviously, I think some of that's down to the fact that he's not being managed by Eddie Howe at the World Cup either. But still, you can't tell me that, taking Sven Botman away from you and putting yourself with a different partner isn't going to have a detrimental effect based on the evidence that we've seen so far.
Yeah. And as just one final thing for me, is Botman now so crucial that spine of the team? Is he one now if his name was left out or he got injured, like Wilson and Bruno, for example? Is that a name you'd go, oh no? Is he that good where it puts that fear into you?
No, and I tell you why, because as is what's already been alluded, Burn and Schär were absolutely solid. I mean, I watched them live a couple of times last season, and they were so good together. And so, provided we had decent left back cover, I'd bring Dan Burn back in and have absolutely no qualms. I was going to say with Botman, the only thing he hasn't done, if I was to criticise him, the only thing he hasn't done is score a goal. And I know it's not his job to do that, but that's the only thing that could have made it any better than it is now.
Yeah, and it feels like it's been coming for like 3 months or
something. We've all
We've
been saying it. Was it Ez who kept saying, I'm going to have a sneaky $5 on Botman to score today?
I've lost about 20 quid.
It's going to come, isn't it, eventually? So, but yeah, I think that what we're saying is we're all agreed that in the end, he is that good, but he's also playing around some really good players who have stepped up. Being playing next to Trippier and Schär on excellent form, and Big Dan as well must really help. I mean, and the way we, Longstaff, if I can stick him in, the way he just tirelessly tries to keep the ball is just excellent. So now moving on, we've got 2 cup games this week. We've got obviously Sheffield Wednesday, which we'll talk about later, tomorrow, and we've got Leicester. What are we all expecting from what is a good cup run this year? Is like a final? Is that what we'll take now? Ez, what do you think?
I mean, I've got a bit of a hot take on this, guys, because I don't get me wrong. If we got to the final of either of the cup competitions, I'd be doing anything to get a ticket, right? But I'd take top 4 right now and just sack off the cups. I would. I would say if we can get Champions League football, that would be transformative in the longer term than winning a cup. And I know how much it means to me to win a cup. So yeah, that's my answer. I think if it meant, obviously, this is all in retrospect, so this is all pure like in theory. But if it meant resting our best players for these next 2 games, and it would guarantee us top 4, if we did that, I would take that now.
Right, we lost you a bit there, Ez, but I think we got the gist of it. Mark, what's your feelings on a cup run? You want a good cup run? Would you sacrifice a cup run for a top four? If they said you'll definitely get to a final, but top four will be eluding us.
Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned it a little bit on a previous show, and I'd be reasonably happy to sacrifice a cup run if it meant getting the top four. I do feel very similar to Ez in that respect. And having said that, I don't think it's an either or. You can sort of almost have your cake and eat it too, to a degree. But I think the three competitions, if you were to go far in both cup competitions and also have your Premier League fixtures, we don't really have the squad for that. Eddie Howe admitted as much in his press conference today.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
And you can't just ignore that. So something has to give. Either we have to bring in more quality players in January, and I think a lot of that could really be determined on the next couple of days. If we win both of those ties, maybe the owners look at that and go, okay, time to get the checkbook out, because otherwise something's going to go wrong here. You can't be expected to not pick up more injuries at some point on the way. It's just the life of being part of football. So I think it isn't an either or, but it does make everything an awful lot harder going deep in two cup runs when you've got a squad that's this thin. My preference, I've said it before, is to focus. If you have to focus on one of the cups, focus on the League Cup, because we've got a home tie. We're already a reasonable way through the competition and towards the final, and no teams in that competition scare me other than Man City. Right. So why wouldn't you? Which I realise Newcastle fans have this. I've called it a weird obsession with the FA Cup before, and I'll say it again. I'm not scared of anyone coming at me for it. It is a weird obsession. I've never understood it myself. I like the FA Cup. I'd like to win it. I don't understand why it seems to be the be-all and end-all on Tyneside. Even in the bad years when we couldn't do anything in the league, it's like this obsession of the FA Cup. I'm like, lads, it might be a bit easier to win the League Cup. Like, I've never understood it.
And Joel, what's your take on it then? Cup or league? Which one would you go? It's a stupid question. I know it's like you can only have one. But
I mean, if you have to sacrifice, then I would prefer to be in the league and go, top four, because I do think that Champions League pull that you then are granted with in the summer window for other players when you're recruiting is so big. Because I mean, we know ourselves, we've always been a big club, but when players just see, right, Champions League, that can influence, a transfer so much. Compared to what some people, don't know, because that is really important. But for me, I'm going to be less sort of strong on the league, because I'm going to agree. Well, I'm not going to agree with Carl in the comment section, because I don't think we should prioritise it. But I know we don't have the squad depth, but we've really got to give it a go. Like, I just think silverware, it's been excellent at the club for the past 50 plus years. We're in this position now where, like you said, City are the only real danger. And if we do progress in the next round and get them into the semis, when we get them over two legs, I do think that'll give us the best chance to beat them as well. Because I'd personally rather have them over two than just in one game. So, I think I don't want to say one or the other, because fingers crossed we can do both. But I really do think we should give it a good go in the cup.
I mean, it is just one of the. It's a silly question, because no one. I mean, we don't know the future, do we? So I mean, we can only have one or the other. We perfectly like it all, really, if we could have it all our own way. My own take on it, being slightly older than you boys, is remembering the 98 and the 99 cup finals and just how fantastic it was just to get there. I mean, obviously the finals themselves were, and I was just thinking about. I can just imagine if we beat Leicester on, is it Tuesday night, isn't it, or Wednesday? Tuesday. And then we get to the semi-final, and whoever we get, I just thought if we get the away leg first, and then we have to take them back to St. James's, the atmosphere is going to be absolutely amazing. I mean, it's just something to behold. I've been through things like that for, when we had decent runs. And that's the other thing that you guys don't have is, I mean, usually our cup runs are over by January, aren't they? That's the other thing. I mean, that's why I think quite a lot of people want to do very well in them, because we have been so very, very poor. I mean, I think it's the 5th round or something like that. Is that about as far as we've got in the last 10 years or something like that? I don't know. I should have really looked at the stat beforehand. But I mean, producer Matt said there is a club set up to compete in both the league and the Champions League this early into a project. and will we have the finances to do it? I mean, if anyone's got the finances, I suppose we would have. Has anyone got any thoughts on that?
Well, it sort of ties into what we were talking about before as well, and kind of answers this question. Like, getting into the top 4 and making that Champions League, one thing we didn't talk about is the finances that brings, not only just in terms of the Champions League money, but can you imagine how much new commercial deals are going to be signed for when you're in a Champions League club versus a Europa League club, or, if we sacrilege, don't even make the top 7 or whatever, than a Premier League club. So that's something that to take into consideration in this as well. So we're probably not set up to compete in that right now. But if you get to the end of the season, we finish in the top 4, and we can all of a sudden turbocharge the finances by bringing in new deals and justifying them because we've got Champions League football. All of a sudden, you've got the money to go out and make yourself a club that can compete on all those fronts.
Yeah. And just before I move on to Sheffield Wednesday, I think what would qualify tying those two things up, playing Sheffield Wednesday tomorrow, and if we could show ourselves this podcast a year ago, and there's us debating about, well, Champions League would be nice, wouldn't it? And semi-final, that would be nice. And we would think, well, you 4 are all off your heads, because there's no way that we could have thought this a year ago when we faced Cambridge United in the Cup, and which takes us very nicely on to the Cup tomorrow. Plays Sheffield Wednesday, who are they second in League One at the moment?
Yeah,
second. They're going in. They're having a decent season. I'll go to Joel first. What do you think of Sheffield Wednesday then? Banana skin or road to Wembley?
Well, I mean, with Newcastle, we've got to be cautious of lower league teams because we wouldn't have any bad record about facing lower league teams ever.
Ronnie Radford.
But yeah, Sheffield Wednesday, the second in the league, they're doing well. Obviously, there's going to be changes. I think there'll be a lot of changes as well. I think for the Leicester game, I think that's going to be a relatively, possibly strongest team. But for this, I do expect possibly even Dubravka to step in goal. That might happen. Fingers crossed Isak makes the bench as well. I'd personally like to see Elliot Anderson play because I've only saw glimpses, but when I have seen him play, he's looked like there's a player in them. And obviously, House just came out and said there, I think, in one of the most recent pre-match conferences that he isn't actually going to go out on loan. Well, if we can take his word for that, he's normally pretty direct. He said he isn't. And he's got him in his plans for the rest of the season. So hopefully we do see him play. And yeah, I think we'll keep with the same formation, same system. And probably will be a close game. I don't think there'll be too many goals. Probably maybe 2-0 or something like that. But fingers crossed, yeah.
Right. And there's Eddie, should he stick or twist? Does he just play the game that's in front of him? Never mind thinking about the quarterfinal on Tuesday, and never mind Fulham. Does he stick with the same 11, or would you like to see him make some changes and try and juggle the team a bit?
Well, I mean, for Tuesday's game, I'd play a full team because of all the reasons Mark gave before around, it's our best chance of getting into a semi-final. It's a home tie, more realistic that we progress in that cup. This is the third. If we had to, I mean, you have to prioritize, right? You can't not prioritize. If you try and go for everything, you'll win nothing. Like, no club has ever won all 4 cups, right? So it's like you have to prioritize. This is the least important game. If we go out tomorrow, okay, fine. So look, we've got Ryan Fraser, we've got Jacob Murphy, we've got Javier Manquillo, we've got Jamal Lewis. Like, what are these guys doing? If they're not ready to come in and do a job against a League One team, albeit a League One team that's going to be tough to break down. I mean, these guys, I'm just looking at their stats. They're second in the league. They've only lost 3 games, and they've played like 26 games. They've only lost 3. They've kept 14 clean sheets. So we know football's all about momentum. This is not going to be an easy game for us tomorrow. Be under no illusion. But these guys are Premier League players, even the Jamal Lewises and stuff. They should be good enough to come in and do a job. And if they're not, we really do have an overhaul in the summer to get rid of some of these players.
Right. And Mark, what's your feeling? I know you're going tomorrow, so what's your feeling it's going to be like? Is it going to be like Ez says? Is it going to be tough, or should we just be the form we're in? Should we just be sweeping these sort of teams in League One aside?
I mean, if you put out the full starting 11, put all the class lads on, then yes, you probably should be sweeping them aside. But as we've already discussed, it's probably not going to happen, and I don't think it's not what I would do either. So I'm not advocating for it. So I think because you haven't got a full strength squad out, it probably will be a tough game. they've obviously got something about them. They're doing well, got momentum behind them. And yeah, okay, they're a League One team. Yeah, absolutely. We should go out there and beat them regardless of which team we put on the pitch. But football doesn't work that way all the time. And if you're bringing on players who haven't been playing, it's always harder to get them up to speed. But Ez is right. If you can't throw the likes of Jamal Lewis on in this game, why even have him in the 25-man squad?
Yeah.
When are we going to nurse him back into football after his injury problems that he's had and everything, if not this game? So if he doesn't play, that speaks, and if he doesn't play, that speaks volumes to me. And if I was Jamal Lewis, I'd be worried, to be honest, because Dan Burn could do with a day off. Bruno could do with a day off. Although who comes in for him, I don't know. We haven't got an awful lot in midfield at the moment, choice wise. So he might have to play. It is quite a tricky one, but. We're gonna have to mix things up a bit, and I think if Isak can come off the bench and we can get a nice cameo from him, that would be perfect. Elliot Anderson got to play, simple as that. He's the best young talent at the club. If he can't come on in an FA Cup third round tie against lower league opposition, again, just send him out on loan. What's the point? What's the point?
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout. I mean, like I said, I was talking to someone about this the other day, and saying the reason the BBC put it on is because it is a banana skin fixture for us. Simple as that. They looked at it, like you said, the Sheffield Wednesday are having a good run. They're going to be well up for it. They're going to be on TV. They're at home. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a lot more trickier than even Leicester in some way. I don't know how Leicester are going to play it. Are they going to just concentrate on the league on Tuesday? What do you think, Joel? Do you think that Sheffield Wednesday is a harder game than Leicester, who are a Premier League team?
I mean, it's all down to perspective, isn't it? But when you look at the squad we're going to probably put out against Sheff Wed, and when you look at priorities, could Sheff Wed potentially be a tougher game? I can agree with that. I think I can. Obviously, away from home, like you said, they're on a bit of a roll. And they seem to be like everything kind of against us. Obviously, we're on TV. Could there be there's notoriously big turnarounds in cups at this stage of the cup. So yes, I think it could be tougher because we're going to go all guns blazing. The atmosphere on Tuesday night. Are any of you going or not? Because I
aren't. No, sorry, I can't go.
Yeah. But hopefully, it's going to be amazing. First chance to get the semi-final in X many years, I'm not sure, but I'm assuming it's a long time. So it's interesting you've asked that, because I actually do think that Sheff Wed will be tougher than Leicester.
Yeah. I mean, I think what became evident to me was on when we played Arsenal, it was just how little we could bring on to change our game. Really, we had to bring Chris Wood on, really, and Jacob Murphy. We didn't really have anyone. You didn't think they were going to come on and go, this is going to change this game now. This is going to, he's got this, because we just don't have it, do we? I mean, that's why I think what we've been saying all along is that this could be a bit of a we would have liked a cup run, but never mind. Let's concentrate on this. So I'm expecting quite a few changes tomorrow. To be fair. So, and we always finish with predictions. So I'll start with Joel. What's your prediction for tomorrow then? Assuming we put out a decent team. We leave, I don't know, Joe Linton in, and maybe take Botman out. What are you expecting?
I'll stick with what I said before. I think it'll be a really close game, possibly even goalless at the break. But hopefully, I think we probably will come out on top and probably put 1 or 2 past them. So I'll go with 2-0 Newcastle.
Right. And what about you, Ez? What's your prediction for tomorrow?
I'm going to be quite controversial here and say that we're going to concede a goal. But it's going to be 2-1 2-1 to Newcastle. I know.
But still a win.
It'll be an own goal, but it'll be an own goal.
It'd be a Liverpool special where we do it a lot. And
Botman finally gets his first goal for Newcastle, and cheering about an own goal.
That wraps it all up very nicely, doesn't it? Altogether, let's face it. Botman scores. Ezzy's happy. We're all happy. Yeah. So, what's your prediction?
I'm glad no one said what I was going to say, which is a 1-0 Newcastle win. I'm going to say the clean sheet rule will carry on, and fingers crossed it will. But I just don't think it will be an easy game. I could see it being. It's one of those games where if you score early, and we probably do have the skill to just keep hold of the ball, and it could be quite comfortable. Maybe not easy, but like relatively comfortable. But away from home, I don't see that happening. It could happen, but if I was putting a bet on it, I wouldn't say it would be a walk in the park. So I'll go with a 1-0, maybe a nervy one.
So we're going all round for a Newcastle win. I'm going to say 2-2 because that's what I say every week now, and we don't lose, and that's all that matters. So I'm just going to stick to that, stick to my suspicion. Well, thank you guys for tonight, and thank you everyone for tuning in and joining in, and we'll see you all again soon. Thank you.
Cheers, everybody. Bye.
Good one.
Cheers.